Good evening and welcome to our special live coverage of the award ceremony for the Nobel Prize in Literature. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. In the coming hour, South Korean novelist Kang will be honored with one of the highest accolades in global literature, the Nobel Prize. Kang has become the 121st laureate of the prestigious award and the 18th woman to receive the prize. She's also the first Asian female winner. Her win marks a historic moment for South Korea as she becomes the second Korean to win the prize, just 24 years after then-President Kim Dae-jung was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize. Han has garnered global recognition for her powerful exploration of suffering and resilience, winning the International Booker Prize in 2016 for The Vegetarian, which was also a first for a Korean. Now, the Nobel Prize in Literature, awarded annually by the Swedish Academy, comes with a prize of $1.1 million in recognition of the writer's outstanding body of work. So today, we celebrate the profound impact of Kang's work, which has touched the hearts and minds of readers worldwide. We'll bring you live footage from the Stockholm ceremony as Kang takes to the stage to receive her acclaimed prize. We'll delve into her unique style, themes, and the significance of her achievement, especially in the context of South Korea's literary scene and the broader world of international literature. Now, to help me with this, we are joined in the studio by David Tizard, Professor of Korean Studies at Seoul Women's University. Welcome, Professor.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Now, before we get started, let's first connect to our reporter who will provide first-hand updates from the scene, sharing exclusive insights and behind-the-scenes moments from the long-awaited ceremony. So, Yujin, are you there? Yujin, first tell us where you are at the moment.
Here. Right, so Mo-gyun, I'm currently standing in front of the Stockholm Concert Hall where this year's Nobel Prize award ceremony will take place. And as you mentioned, we're only just a few minutes away until the ceremony begins at this hall. And also, as you mentioned, tonight, Kang will make history as becoming the first laureate in literature, Nobel Prize laureate in literature, as well as the first Asian female to achieve this honor. But before all these celebrations begin, I'll first walk you through on what you can expect tonight. It's time to celebrate achievements and innovations. Today, December 10th, is Nobel Day, when this year's Nobel Prizes are awarded to the winners. Here's a preview of the big day. This is a Stockholm Concert Hall where the Nobel Prize award ceremony will begin at 4 p.m. local time. Each laureate will be honored with a presentation speech before receiving a diploma and a medal presented by Sweden's King Carl Gustaf. Korean author Kang, this year's Nobel laureate in literature, will take the stage fourth following the awards in physics, chemistry, and physiology or medicine. After the award ceremony will be the Nobel Prize banquet. Sometimes described as the world's most secretive dinner, the menu is kept tightly under wraps until the event begins. But here's a small hint from this year's chefs: porridge and apples.
In Sweden, we have a culture of produce grains, and I think it's really because it has a lot to do with tradition to serve porridge, and also the barley is hydrothermal treated, so the body can optimize more of the nutrition.
So the apple for me is a great symbol for knowledge and innovation. So it feels good to actually work with the apple for this kind of people. So it feels like it also symbolizes them in a way. And also we have had an amazing apple year this year in Sweden.
About 1,300 distinguished guests, including the laureates, the Swedish royal family, and government officials, will gather at Stockholm City Hall. The highlight of the evening will be the speeches of thanks delivered by one laureate from each category. Leading up to Nobel Day, Kang has had a busy Nobel week. She began with a visit to the Nobel Prize Museum, where she donated a teacup and a handwritten note detailing a routine while working on her latest book, We Do Not Part.
Step number 1, she would wake up at 5:30 every morning. She did not always succeed. Step 2 was she needed to take a walk every single day. And the third was to have a cup of tea from this teacup. And then afterwards she would look into the swirl, and that became her universe when she wrote the book.
Han's presence extends beyond the museum. She is also celebrated at the Nobel Week Lights Festival. The author is featured in 2 light installations, Leading Lights and De Auditon, which shine a spotlight on female laureates.
Her writing is it's poetic and also very social realism in a way, and that is really like a kind of inspiration for me in this artwork as well, to have something that is in a way magical, but also like focusing on human beings here and now.
Soon, the stage will light up with laureates, including Han, whose contributions inspire a brighter, more innovative future for us all.
Right, Yujin. So just as you said, we will be able to see the ceremony begin in just a couple of minutes now. Is there anything specific we should keep our eyes on during the event, Yujin?
Well, there is. So all eyes are on the presentation speech for Kang, because traditionally the speeches introducing the literature laureates are delivered in Swedish, but at the very end, when the presenter invites the laureate to receive the honor, it's either spoken in the author's mother tongue, which is Korean in this case, or English. So a lot of people are hoping to hear Korean being spoken on the stage. And this speech will be given by Swedish author Ellen Mattsson, who is also the member of the Swedish Academy and the Nobel Committee for Literature. And as for the specific schedule for the Literature Prize award ceremony, it is scheduled to begin at around 4:42 p.m. local time, which will be 12:42 a.m. Wednesday, Korea time.
Right, and we also hear that the laureates could give a speech at the banquet that will follow.
Right, so according to the itinerary given by the Nobel Foundation, each laureate will be giving a speech of thanks. According to that itinerary, Han Kang will give her speech in 4th in order, followed by physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine. And so a lot of people are wondering and want to know about which message Han Kang will give following the press conference and the Nobel lecture that she held a few days ago. But all in all, I want to say that tonight will be a very long evening of celebrations, because even though the banquet ends at 11 p.m., it will then move on to the Golden Hall, where the participants of the banquet will participate in dancing. So that's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates once the ceremony starts. Back to you, Mugan.
Right, sounds like an incredible day and night ahead. Thank you for that preview. We'll talk to you soon. So as we wait for the official ceremony to begin, Professor Tizard, I must ask you, I want to ask, what are your first initial reaction to, Han Kang's receiving of this prestigious award?
Yes, thank you again for having me. On a personal level, to see Han Kang win this award, it's fantastic. I really felt for her, and it was so nice to see South Korea in the news for the right reasons. Also, what's very interesting to me is how South Korea experiences things on a collective level. This has been amazing for me to observe since I've been here in the country. For example, in the United Kingdom, where I'm from, if Ed Sheeran or Adele or somebody like that wins a music award, I think, congratulations, but I don't feel a sense of collective British pride, perhaps. Maybe I should. Maybe my patriotism is waning. But here in Korea, if somebody succeeds, if a Korean person elevates themselves onto the global stage, that sense of collective pride is tangible. I can feel it among my family members, my co-workers in the university campuses. It's as if Han Kang is winning the award, not just for herself and not just for her literature, but for the whole Korean nation. They feel seen, they feel respected, and that feeling, being able to be here on the ground level and experiencing that with South Korean people is wonderful. Of course, there's also a flip side. It also works with shame. That feeling will also rise up. It's the same emotion, perhaps, or the flip side of it. But being here and feeling that shared collective joy with South Korean people, it's just marvelous, I must say.
Right, and of of course, there's a lot of Koreans who also travel to Sweden to, witness this historical moment, of course, right?
Including Eugene, the reporter, as well. It looks far more fun where she is than here in the studio, though, of course, I'm very happy to be here. Having watched Hangang over the last week, while she's been there and she's talked about the trips, the sights that she wants to see and the things that she wants to do, it's very far removed, I think, from her day-to-day life, and it shows you just what a special occasion this is for her and for South Korea.
Right. Thank you for sharing, Professor. Now, I think we will turn into the Stockholm Concert Hall in Sweden. It looks like the ceremony has begun. We are seeing some footage of the concert hall, of course, and I believe that the introduction of the royal family will begin in just a couple of minutes. Now the royal families will...
Prince Carl Philip and Princess Sophia are first to enter here, sitting in the first row below the stage. And Princess Madeleine and Christopher O'Neill. And we are here today, as every year, on the 10th of December, which is the anniversary of Alfred Nobel's death, the inventor that is the origin of this prize. Drum roll for His Majesty the King. The Swedish royal anthem, marking that the royal family has arrived and entered the stage. Next, we're waiting for the people that we have come to celebrate today, the Nobel laureates. And music today will be performed by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. now when everybody is gathered here, we will hear a speech by Professor Astrid Söderberg Wirring, the chair of the board of the Nobel Foundation.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel Prize laureates, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Nobel Foundation, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the 2024 Nobel Prize Award ceremony. In particular, I wish to welcome the Nobel Prize laureates, their families and friends. Today in Oslo, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, also known as Hibakusha, and I quote, "for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons, and for demonstrating through witness testimony that nuclear weapons must never be used again," end of quote. This Japanese grassroots movement, survivors of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, has for almost 80 years argued the necessity of an international nuclear taboo. During decades, nuclear arms were considered the main threat to humankind. But in spite of these witnesses reminding us, and because of trust in arms treaties and international developments, this almost fell into oblivion. Today, as nuclear threats are being expressed anew in connection with wars and conflicts involving nuclear powers, the Nobel Peace Prize takes on an existential dimension. Earlier this year, a number of Nobel Prize laureates signed the Mainau Declaration 2024 on nuclear weapons, urging all nations to protect human civilization by ensuring that nuclear arms never be used again. The atomic bomb also recalls that basic research put into practice is not only for good. Still, however, it is through free fundamental research that science must continue to explore and expand the frontiers of human knowledge, laying the foundation for future applications and development. The scientific breakthroughs awarded this year in science and medicine, the Physics Prize for using dynamical systems to understand mechanisms of memory and laying the foundations for artificial intelligence, the Chemistry Prize for using the latter for predicting protein structures and for computational design of proteins, and the prize in Physiology of Medicine for the discovery of an essential complementary process for how identical genetic information leads to different cells, have already led to groundbreaking applications for the greatest benefit of humankind. The unimaginable consequences that genetic technologies and artificial intelligence may perhaps introduce can only be managed in trustful, rule-based international collaboration. The Literature Prize this year, awarded to a profound exploration of human vulnerability against the backdrop of historical trauma, where the abyss is always as close as is the longing for transformation, sheds light upon the fragile condition of humankind. And finally, the prize in economic sciences for quantitatively assessing the importance of a country's institutions for its prosperity can be considered in the present context of ongoing autocratization with faltering democracies. Facing a number of interconnected challenges, including climate change and geopolitical tensions, we indeed live in times of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. The insightful testament of Alfred Nobel, which has gathered us here, is still of highest relevance. The scientific prizes award fundamental research. Still, all the awards, in their diversity, also address the global challenges of today. The laureates have paved the way. Science, literature, and peace offer different paths to tackle today's wicked problems. But they all remind us that it is not blind destiny that decides on our future as humanity. This also offers hope. It lies in our hands to change the world.
Before the first prize being awarded to the physics laureates, we will be entertained by some music, a piece by Richard Wagner. And soprano soloist here is Ingela Brindberg. Now a presentation speech by Professor Ellen Moons.
Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel Prize laureates, ladies and gentlemen. As you arrived here
Right,
today,
so the ceremony is still
recognized
ongoing,
some
and the
faces
Nobel Committee will
instantly.
begin awarding the Nobel Prize recipients beginning with physics, chemistry, physiology, and then literature, which will be followed by economic sciences. The Peace Prize, meanwhile, is awarded in a separate ceremony, and it's already done in Oslo. And we will turn back to Stockholm during the pivotal moments going forward. Now, as we wait, let's return to our Professor Tizard. Professor, so could you remind us of the significance of Hangang's latest achievement?
The significance cannot be understated, I think. The Nobel Prize is prestigious as it is reputable, and as we've heard, it comes with a wonderful financial incentive. So I'm sure all the work she's doing at the moment will be nicely rewarded. And the Nobel Prize for literature goes through a very vigorous process. Nobody really expected Kang to be winning this award. She wasn't on the shortlist. It was very, very much unexpected. What the Nobel Prize for Literature seems to be doing with this, and what they do in general, is they try to promote voices that are underrepresented. They try to give a voice to those that are sometimes not heard. That's what they've done with this award, and that's what Kang's work, I think, does anyway. It's incredibly significant. There's a wonderful film, I'm not sure if you've seen it, it's called Past Lives. It's a movie about a Korean woman who leaves the country, and this was 2023, so it's last year. She leaves South Korea, and one of the key lines is, nobody from Korea has ever won the Nobel Prize for Literature. This country is too small. And that was in a movie last year. And I watch it this semester with my students, and we all kind of chuckle at it now because we realize that that was a meaningful statement last year, that people felt that Korea was almost too small in which to achieve their ambitions. They had to go abroad to be recognized, to be seen. But Kang has demonstrated with this award that that's not necessarily true. The world will come to Korea. The world will listen to its voices when they speak in a moving, authentic and powerful way, as Kang has done with the voice that she has. And so I think this is really influential. A lot of the spotlight recently has been on other cultural products from Korea, things like K-pop. That certainly received a lot of attention. This shows the depth and profundity of Korean culture, that it's beyond just the music, which is wonderful, and we should respect those artists and entertainers that have achieved that success. But now it shows a more broader spotlight. And I think, personally, with everything that's happening in Korea right now, for it to be Kang that's in the spotlight, receiving the questions about the enactment of martial law, receiving the questions of people wondering what's happening in South Korea at the moment, it feels like, even though she might be a little bit perturbed by the questions, she feels like the right person at the right time. Because if it was a K-pop idol or somewhere else, they may have just avoided the questions. They may have sort of played a straight bat and kept very calm about this. But Kang, it seems like she's the right person at the right time to be here representing Korea.
Right, so the committee actually really shed light on a voice that has not been heard, and it was at the right time and right place at this moment. Now, let's reconnect. Let's have some time to reconnect with our culture correspondent, Song Yujin, who is in Stockholm. Yujin, the award ceremony is underway, and we eagerly await the moment Kang receives her prize. How's the atmosphere like there?
Well, Mogan, I can say that the excitement here is real, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Despite the crisp cold weather amid sub-zero temperatures, we're seeing more people gathering outside the Stockholm Concert Hall. That is the building that you're seeing behind me, where the award ceremony is taking place. They are taking photographs, and they are, I think, just enjoying the fact that they are witnessing and being part of this historic moment. So we're definitely seeing more people coming in to this venue. And inside the concert hall, as you mentioned, the award ceremony has just begun, and the Literature Prize award ceremony will be in fourth in order, following physics, chemistry, physiology, and then the Literature Prize. And as I mentioned earlier, the award ceremony will begin with a presentation speech introducing Kang by the Swedish author Ellen Mattsson, who is also the member of the Nobel Committee for Literature as well as the Swedish Academy. So after her 5-minute presentation, Kang will step up, and then she'll receive the Nobel Prize diploma and medal from King Carl Gustaf of Sweden. And this will definitely be a proud, monumental, historic moment because, as Professor Tizard mentioned earlier, the Nobel Prize is one of the most prestigious accolades in literature. And the fact that Kang is the first Korean laureate to win this prize, as well as the first Asian female to receive this honor, just speaks for itself. So let's first take a listen to what some people have to say about how excited they are to be part of this historic afternoon.
We wanted to celebrate Kang, so we were very happy that she got got the Nobel Prize. It's a great honor to come from the same country.
And
really.
It's very good that she's a woman too.
I'm the editor-in-chief of our school's newspaper, and we published a special edition immediately after Kang was named this year's Nobel Prize winner. I felt very proud and honored.
I could feel that Kang winning the Nobel Prize was real while participating in the Nobel Week program. It was special to listen her works being recited in Korean at Literature Night.
Well, I could feel how much excited those interviewees were, and it must be really incredible to witness the situation, Eugene. Then once the ceremony concludes now, what's next on the agenda for the laureates?
So after the 1-hour-long war ceremony, the celebrations will then move to the Stockholm City Hall's Blue Hall, where the Nobel Prize banquet will take place. And for this year's banquet, around 1,300 distinguished guests, which include, of course, this year's Nobel laureates, as well as the Swedish royal family, government officials, and more, will attend. And then, always, the menu for the Nobel banquet sparks great interest, but just like any other Nobel banquet, it will be kept tightly under secret until all the guests are seated, and the actual banquet starts at 7 p.m. local time, which will be 3 a.m. Korea time, that is Wednesday. And after the banquet begins, the participants will, of course, dine. But at the end of the event, when coffee and liquors are served, this is the real highlight. One laureate per category will give their speech of thanks, which, of course, includes Kang. Kang will give her speech fourth. And the evening doesn't end here, Morgan. The celebrations will continue on because after the banquet ends at 11 p.m., the participants will then move to the City Hall's Golden Hall, and they will take part in a night of dancing, rounding off a truly unforgettable night. But I think that a lot of our viewers will want to know more about what's left in Kang's Stockholm schedule. So to give you a brief sneak peek of her remaining itinerary, she will attend a press conference with the Korean media Wednesday afternoon, local time, and then she will wrap up her Nobel Week journey by visiting the Nobel Foundation and attending the concluding reception that will be hosted by the foundation as well. And that's all I have for now. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you for the clear wrap-up, Eugene. That was Song Eugene live from Stockholm. Now, over the weekend, Kang hosted a short session in Sweden to share her journey into writing with the audience. Our culture correspondent Song Eugene brings us the highlights.
After nearly 2 months of keeping a low profile following her Nobel Prize win, Korean author Kang has embraced the spotlight at Nobel Week.
This award is given to the literature, and this year I was awarded. This is my conclusion, and this makes me more comfortable.
Now feeling more at ease with her Nobel laureate title, the 54-year-old author shared her journey of uncovering the overarching theme of her work during her Nobel lecture, Light and Thread.
세계는 왜 이토록 폭력적이고 고통스러운가? 동시에 세계는 어떻게 이렇게 아름다운가? 이 두 질문 사이의 긴장과 내적 투쟁이 나의 글쓰기를 밀고 온 동력이었다고 오랫동안 믿어왔습니다.
These questions were etched in her mind at age 12 after seeing photographs of civilians killed during the Gwangju democratization movement. Decades later, while writing her 2014 novel Human Acts, which delves into the tragedy, she discovered that love, not those questions, was at the heart of her storytelling.
우리는 인간성을 믿고자 하기에 그 믿음이 흔들릴 때 자신이 파괴되는 것을 느끼는 것일까? 우리는 인간을 사랑하고자 하기에 그 사랑이 부서질 때 고통을 느끼는 것일까? 사랑에서 고통이 생겨나고 어떤 고통은 사랑의 증거인 것일까?
This connection to love, however, had always been with her. At 8 years old, Han wrote a poem that read, "Where is love? It is inside my thumb-thumping, beating chest. What is love? It is the gold thread connecting between our hearts." Now, she sees writing itself as an act of that love.
소설을 쓸 때 나는 신체를 사용합니다. 심장이 뛰고 갈증과 허기를 느끼고 걷고 달리고 바람과 눈비를 맞고 손을 맞잡는 모든 감각의 세부들을 사용합니다. 그 생생한 감각들을 전류처럼 문장들에 불어넣으려 하고 그 전류가 읽는 사람들에게 전달되는 것을 느낄 때면 놀라고 감동합니다. 언어가 우리를 잇는 실이라는 것을
Han concluded her 30-minute lecture by thanking her readers.
Right, Professor Tizard, so we just heard about the lecture that Han gave over the weekend. What do you make of the speech?
It was wonderful. I think it's very much in her personality that she had the courage to read something that she wrote when she was so young. Most people would want to do something new, to show their best self, to have positive vibes only. And there she is with something that she did when she was 8. That's wonderful. I would like to say that there was this one part that really stood out to me. She said this, each time I work on a novel, I endure the questions. I live inside them. When I reach the end of these questions, which is not the same as when I find answers to them, is when I reach the end of the writing process. This was really important, I think, because Han Kang is not a prophetic writer. She's not here to give these huge declarative statements about the way the world is. She's not here to necessarily give us the answers, but as she says, in her own words, she's here to ask questions, and that's what her writing does. And she asks the uncomfortable questions and she lives inside them. You can feel that she's experiencing that trauma of asking the questions that very few of us sometimes want to ask. What does it mean to be Korean? Who are these soldiers? What does death mean? How can we endure pain or punishment from the hands of our loved ones or those who are meant to protect us? What does it mean to be a woman in South Korean society? She's asking these questions, but not just asking them. As she said, she's living inside them. Right. And I think this highlights the experience that she has to go through as a writer. It's not all glitz and glamour like we see here. She gets to experience it now, which is beautiful, but the writing process itself seems to be one of that she endures.
Right. Now we have to turn back to our footage in Stockholm. It looks like the ceremony is ongoing, and we are looking at some footage of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry this year was granted to 3 individuals: David Baker, University of Washington, USA, Demis Hassabis, and John Jumper, both from Google DeepMind in the UK, for using artificial intelligence to better interpret existing proteins and to custom develop new proteins. We are seeing footage of them being awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And now, Professor, let's circle back again to our discussion. So this is the Nobel Prize ceremony. So could you remind us the importance of the Nobel Prize in Literature and the tough process that one has to go through to receive the award?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we kind of already covered this. I mean, it's a year-long process with incredible vetting and everything that takes place. Many people want to win this award, and many famous writers that we can think of haven't. Certainly when Han Kang did win this award, there were many people that said, what about all these other Korean authors, and what about this? So it's very reputable, it's very prestigious. If I can, perhaps, maybe let's turn the conversation to the small teacup that Han Kang donated to the Nobel Museum. And I thought this was a wonderful gesture because tea drinking has become sort of a hip culture again in South Korea amongst all the coffee. Now, youngsters again are finding tea. Han Kang donated a small teacup that she used to drink from. And it's a wonderful symbol because a teacup, the one that she gave, that she used every day, it's not just a vessel, it's also a companion. It was there with her every day and she drank from it. Also, another wonderful symbolism of this teacup that she gave is a teacup is replenishing, it's refreshing, it gives you the energy that you like, but it's also very fragile. Just like the human, it can crack and it can shatter and it needs to be protected. I think the fact that rather than an ostentatious gift, rather than something grand, to give a small teacup that was her companion, I think it really shows so much of what she's about. It really reflects her personality. I would like to just perhaps be in the presence of that teacup for a while, because I'm sure it's more than a teacup. It contains a little bit of Hangang in there as well.
Right, and it also could influence and promote South Korea's culture of, drinking teas as well, right?
She could have given a nice Americano, perhaps, but she didn't. She gave her teacup. She doesn't drink alcohol, she said herself either, so a teacup perhaps was the best thing.
Right. And Professor Han's win is a monumental, of course, moment for South Korean literature.
Yeah.
How do you think her Nobel Prize will impact the global recognition of Korean writers, especially in this literary world?
This is a personal story, but since her victory, I've had publishers based in the United Kingdom reach out to me and ask me for recommendations on Korean authors that are published in Korean that haven't been translated yet. So there's a real tangible benefit that's going on for Korean writers that haven't sort of ventured overseas yet with their translations. This is a great time for them. But rather than just looking forward, I think it would also be interesting to look to the past. Now, Han, though a literary giant herself, she stands on the shoulders of many that have come before us. Korean literature has a big history, so I think maybe now would be a time just to recognize the influence of people like Park Won-seo, Oh Jung-hee, Kim Ji-won, these female writers that wrote before Hangang and did so in perhaps much harder times, and they set the scene for Hangang to have her voice in the poetry world as well. People like Park No-hye, who wrote under the dictatorship times. All of these people struggled and wrote so that Hangang could enjoy the success that she has today. So while there will be many people looking forward to the continued successes that Korean literature can have, I think it's also important that we recognize the past and we recognize the steep history in which Hangang is certainly a part of now.
Right, so it garnered opportunity for future rising authors and also the past authors who weren't seen by the international community. Now, Han becomes the first Korean and the first Asian woman to receive such an award.
Yeah.
Since 1901, 121 people have received the award, and before Han, only 5 of them were from Asia. Professor, what does her victory mean in terms of, breaking barriers?
I think it's very important. It's important that people can feel represented and seen. People want to look at media and see themselves. Even if it's not their exact identity, they want to see somebody that represents them. They want to not just see the same old faces all the time. And I think Han's victory, it shows where Europe is at the moment. I know in the recent United States election, there was Kamala Harris who didn't win, and there was all this talk of sort of racism and misogyny and things like that. And while we're seeing the steep traditions of the Swedish royal family, yet Europe is a pretty progressive place, and we're seeing this representation of diverse voices that perhaps wasn't always there during the 20th century. I think Hangang's victory is a sign that this is the way parts of the world are going. And some people might decry it as sort of identity politics or focusing on something beyond that, but it means so much to so many people to be able to be seen. It's very interesting, we heard Hangang earlier say that this award was given to her work rather than her, and I thought that was very interesting, because to be given to her, the pressure would be very grand, and what does she write next? But she said, this award was given to my work. And yes, it was her that wrote this. Yes, it was a Korean woman that wrote this, an Asian woman, and that's being respected right now. But nevertheless, it was the work that she produced, and the work that she produced stands and speaks for itself. The quality is immense. I've read through it in both languages. I struggled a bit more in Korean, but it's really important, and I think that her victory is a victory for many people in that sense.
Right, and before we get to the next question, so I just heard that you read her books in 2 languages, and we are aware that there's translation in this context. It's very important. It played a big role. What did you feel about, the translating part?
Well, there's been many criticisms about the translations. Certainly, the titles alone in Korean, 소년이 온다, a boy is coming, and then the English title, Human Acts. So the Korean title feels very Korean to me. It feels very much steeped in that, I don't know, 민중 운동 movement, that sort of labor movement. And it feels like that Human Acts sounds very sort of cold, clinical, very much on the nose. Now, these translators, they've obviously done an excellent job because people all around the world like Hangang's work. I think that what's really interesting for me about this idea of translation and voices, Hangang can speak English excellently. You can, but she doesn't want to, or she doesn't necessarily always feel the need to. She doesn't want to accommodate always for an international audience. Hangang, when she writes, and when she wrote a book about Jeju, it was steeped in the Jeju dialect and the Satori there. And when she wrote about Gwangju, her hometown, you could feel that language as well. So she writes and she gives voice to the Korean language, and that's why I read it in Korean, or at least attempted to get through it in Korean, because that's how she communicates. Yes, she can write in English, and yes, she can pepper her prose with these words in the style of perhaps like Haruki Murakami, who loves filling his work with Western allusions, but Hangang doesn't do that. And perhaps that's the very reason why it's so popular, because it's so Korean.
Right, and it can resonate to other people who speak other languages as well. Now, as the first female writer to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, how do you think Hangang's achievement would influence the next generation of female writers?
It definitely has. I work at a women's university here in Seoul, South Korea, and when she won, we saw Eugene talking to some Yonsei students there, I believe, in Sweden, and what it meant to them. It meant so much to the people here as well, to the young women. And I think this is not just about the next generation of writers. This is about the next generation of readers as well. Hangang has convinced the Korean public that, hey, it's worth picking up a book again. It's worth discovering. We saw all of these reports of all of a sudden the books were sold out. They wanted to go and read them, but they can't. So I think more than just writers, and it will encourage writers, definitely, but more than that, it's also going to point to, hey, it's good to read. There's value in books. There's something in there that's worth going through. And so that's the big takeaway for me. She's inspired the next generation, tangible amongst the young women that I know, but also for them to pick up a book, and that's a beautiful thing.
Right, she also expanded the readership in this.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, Professor, I read one of your commentaries and a statement that said, the world listens because Hangang stories, the world listens because in Hangang stories there is something both familiar and foreign. It was very interesting. Could you elaborate for our viewers, too, on what makes her work particularly compelling?
Yeah, there's a wonderful idea, which is this. The most personal is the most universal. When we go deep into ourselves and tell a story, when we say, here's some TMI, here's some information for you, the world listens. I think when we try to tell a grand universal story that will reach all cultures and that will please everybody, it generally falls flat. It feels constructed by a committee of people, and it doesn't work. And Hangang, she doesn't do that. She writes what she writes. If I can, I'll share very briefly one story. I watched in my class the movie 국제시장, Ode to My Father, which is a movie that talks about Korean historical developments. It's the Korean Forrest Gump. A young French-Vietnamese guy watched this, and it made him realize the sacrifices his Cambodian relatives had made to get him to France. And as he told this story, the Indonesian students in my class began crying. So here was a Korean story that helped a young Frenchman understand his Cambodian heritage, and it influenced Indonesian people. And I think this really is the power of art. We think that this is a real Korean story and it addresses Korean issues. It does. But because it does, and because it's genuine, because it's authentic, because it's told with so much passion, it moves people.
Right. Professor, thank you for your insights on that. Now we will turn to the Stockholm Concert Hall. It looks like the awarding ceremony for the Nobel Prize for Literature is going on. And we're seeing some footage of people who attended there clapping their hands. Like I've mentioned, members of the Nobel Prize Committee will shortly introduce the awardee. And as for the Literature Prize, Swedish author and Nobel Literature Prize Committee member Ellen Mattsson will call out Hangang partly in the Korean language. All right, Professor, so let's go back to our conversation.
Yeah.
The vegetarian and human acts both deal with significant historic traumas in the Korean society. Well, you kind of mentioned a while ago that people from other cultures could relate to the story, even though they don't have the exact same experience. But how do you think these themes of Korean historical traumas resonate with readers outside of Korea, particularly those who are not familiar with the country's history?
This will be, quite a controversial thing that I might say for some people, but it's been roughly 10 years since the Korean government placed a series of artists on a blacklist. And we don't have the exact information, but it's rumored that on that blacklist were people like Park Chan-wook, who made the decision to leave JSA, Old Boy, other movies, Bong Joon-ho of Parasite, Memories of Murder, Hwang Dong-hyuk of Squid Game, and Hangang herself. The country, part of the country, tried to silence some voices, and it was these voices, most interestingly, that the outside world wanted to hear most, that resonated most. And why is that? When Hangang tells stories, the monsters in her work are not born of fantasy. They're not creatures that come out from the depths of the earth. They do not hide in the shadows or emerge from the unknown. The monsters or the things that scare us in Hangang's work, they are us. They are part of us. They are part of our history, part of our collective experience. They are the wounds that people go forward. They are the massacres, the death and the blood. And she writes about all of this. And it's almost as if she's saying the things that you're not allowed to say in polite society. Korea, many people might not believe it, but generally feels like a very apolitical society. You don't talk about politics at the coffee table or things like this. But Hangang does. Despite what might come her way, she sits with these wounds, she sits with these memories, and as she sort of described, she goes into them and explores them. And I think the outside world resonates with that, because people want to know what was Gwangju, who was Park Chung-hee, how do we understand Korean history, why are there two Koreas, what is Jeju, what happened down there? Young people, they have so many questions about Korea, they're so curious, and we can give them very well curated answers, and but we also need to give them the literature. And I think many people have resonated with the depiction, as dark and fragile and beautiful as it might be. They've certainly resonated with Hangang's Korea.
Right, so it really shows how powerful her voices are in her storytelling. Now, we are currently watching some footage of a play that's being held ahead, possibly, I think, ahead of the awarding of the Nobel Prize in Literature. So before that, I think the performance has just ended. So the members of each Nobel Prize committee will explain the background of their selections. The laureates are called in their official language of their home country.
Eders Majestäter, ärade pristagare, mina damer och herrar. Två färger möts i Han Kangs författarskap, vitt och rött. The
white is the snow that falls in so many of our books, drawing a protective curtain between the narrator and the world. But white is also the color of sorrow and of death. Red stands for life, but also for pain, blood, the deep cuts of a knife. While her voice can be seductively soft, it speaks of indescribable cruelty, of irreparable loss. Blood flows from the bodies piled up after the massacre, darkens, becomes an appeal, a question that the text can neither answer nor ignore. How should we relate to the dead, the abducted, the disappeared? What can we do for them? What do we owe them? The white and the reds symbolize a historical experience that Han returns to in her novels. In We Do Not Part from 2021, the snow creates a space where a meeting can take place between the living and the dead, and those floating in between who are yet to decide which category they belong to. The entire novel is played out within a snowstorm where, in piecing together her memories, the narrative self glides through layers of time, interacting with the shadows of the dead and learning from their knowledge, because ultimately it is always about knowledge and seeking out the truth, unbearable though it may be. In one exquisitely realized evocation, the friend, despite her physical body being confined to a hospital bed many miles away, is able to pull out a box of files from a shelf, and find a document that adds a further piece to the historical mosaic. The dream spills over into reality, the past into the present. These shifts by which boundaries are dissolved are a constant in Han's writing, where people move around unhindered, their feelers pointing in both directions, ready to gather and interpret signals. Perhaps they are broken down by what they see and witness, which always comes at the price of their own peace of mind. And yet, they keep on going with the strength that is required. Forgetting is never the goal. Who killed me? Asks the murdered boy's soul, as the facial features that defined him in life dissolve and disappear. For the survivor, the question is a different one. How can I live on with this body that has only led me to torment? How can I regain the body that torture has reduced to nothing but a bleeding object? But when the body gives up, the soul continues to speak. When the soul tires, the body keeps on walking. Deep within lies a stubborn resistance, a quiet insistence stronger than words, a need to remember. Again, it is not the aim to forget, nor would it be possible. In Han's world, people are wounded, fragile, in some sense weak, and yet they possess just enough strength, and just the right kind of strength, to take another step or ask another question, request another document, or interview another surviving witness. As the light fades, the shadows of the dead continue to move around on the wall. Nothing ever passes, nothing ever ends.
Dear Hangang,
Dear Hangang,
on behalf of the Swedish Academy, it is my privilege to convey to you our warmest congratulations on the Nobel Prize in Literature 2024. May I now please ask you to step forward and receive your prize from His Majesty the King.
was Ellen Mattsson, Nobel Prize Committee member. She delivered a speech in Swedish and in English, and Han has received her award. It was a very incredible moment watching Han Kang, the first Korean to receive a Nobel Prize in Literature in Stockholm. And her achievement is not only significant and historic milestone for Korean literature, but also a moment of global recognition for the depth and beauty of her storytelling. Professor, how did you see this?
I was moved. I thought it was wonderful to see her there. When I was young, these kind of things didn't influence me much. But as I get older, watching Han Kang step up there and receive that award, I felt touched. I could feel that. I hope many Koreans are awake at this moment to share in that beauty, because this is a time when Korea steps onto the world stage. It's recognized by kings and European royalty. There's gala music being played and people in tuxedos, and they're there to celebrate Korean literature, and it's the voice of Han Kang. Well, what a beautiful moment for the country.
Right, and everyone gave her a standing ovation, of course. Now, Han Kang has mentioned that this year marks her 30th year of writing, and that she's currently working to finish a book that she started earlier this year, and that before she turns 60, she hopes to, write 3 more books. How do you anticipate her exploration of love, violence, and humanity continuing to evolve in her upcoming novels?
I think she mentioned with her speech entitled Light and Thread that there's going to be that continued exploration of beauty and brutality. That seems very Korean to me in a way. I'm not sure if I'm generalizing, but that beautiful sadness, that violent love, that combination of those two things, it seems like she might continue exploring, because she said that the work was given to her work and not her. It means that I guess she's going to feel less pressure. She's going to focus on the writing and focus on the process. It feels like she's not going to be carried away with everything that's going on. Perhaps as she nears her 60s, as you said, she might go into a period of reflection of what love means. And she often talks about a sibling that she lost at a very, very early age, and how that might change. She might explore generational difference as she nears that age. I'm not sure what she'll do, but she's never shied away from tackling the big questions, and I'm sure that she's still got some energy inside her to keep doing that. And as she does, she writes and explores and asks those questions for all of us.
Right, so we will look forward to more of her stories in the upcoming future. Now, it's time for us to wrap up our discussion, I'm afraid. Professor Tizard, thank you so much for your insights tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me share this experience with you. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful, too. Now, tonight witnessed a defining moment, not just for Han Kang, but for Korean literature on the world stage. It will stand as a reminder that the power of words transcends borders, cultures, and languages, uniting us in the shared experience of literature. On behalf of our team and everyone involved in this live coverage, thank you for joining us in celebrating this historic moment. This has been Kim Mo-kyan, and we wish you all a wonderful evening.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your